Hello everyone, and welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Today, we will hear a story about responsibility, ethics, and how we treat others, especially children and people with disabilities. Today's story will take you through a surprising situation. It's certainly not normal for a mother to abandon her child just to have some personal time, especially to the extent of leaving the child with a stranger without prior notice. This action demonstrates Karen's irresponsibility and selfishness, which is something no one would expect from a mother. If you find this story interesting and full of meaningful lessons, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to learn more valuable lessons. This is truly a bizarre story. It's not mine, but rather a friend of mine who messaged me right after the incident to vent because, WTAF? Karen equals the self-centered mother, SK equals the sweet child, F equals my friend Karen moved into the apartment right next to F's just a few weeks ago. During this time, although they lived close to each other, they only exchanged brief, polite conversations on a couple of occasions. The interactions between them seemed very mundane and distant, with only 2 times that F clearly remembers. The second time, which is the most recent, happened just yesterday, right before this bizarre story began. The lack of connection and the cautious nature of these conversations made the situation that followed even more confusing and uncomfortable. This morning, around 9 a.m., F was enjoying a peaceful Saturday morning. She usually wakes up very early during the weekdays, around 6 a.m., to start her work, so weekends are precious times for rest and recharge. This scene is a crucial part of her life, as after a long week of work, she can finally relax in the quiet of her own home. But this moment of peace was about to be shattered. Suddenly, a loud, urgent knock on the door startled F, forcing her to pay attention. The knocking seemed like a signal that something unusual and possibly serious was happening. When F opened the door, she didn't expect to see Karen, the neighbor she'd only met a couple of times. And not just Karen, but also SK, a 5-year-old girl standing beside her, carrying a small backpack. SK looked a little out of place and confused, as if she didn't know where she was or why she was standing there. Karen, with a flustered expression, quickly apologized. However, her apology seemed forced and insincere. She explained that she couldn't give prior notice, but she needed F's help because she had something important to do. She asked F to look after SK for a few hours, without considering F's feelings or circumstances, making the request even more uncomfortable than ever. In fact, this was the first time Karen had asked F for help without any prior notice, which only added to the surprise and discomfort F felt. The entire situation highlighted Karen's lack of respect for F, as she disregarded F's health and circumstances just for a rather laughable reason, an important appointment she considered non-negotiable, even though it was just a personal, non-urgent event. Especially considering that F had no experience in childcare, this situation seemed even more absurd and unreasonable. The first crucial thing you need to understand about F is that she simply cannot take care of children. She can't stand their presence. Every time a child appears near her, even with a simple wave or a small sound, she feels extremely tense and awkward. This situation became even more challenging when F didn't know how to handle it. This feeling isn't just regular discomfort, but rather a genuine reaction from someone who cannot interact with children. It's like when she's in a supermarket, and a child happens to notice her. Additionally, F faces an even bigger issue: she has a disability. While F can move around, her health problems make mobility much harder than for a typical person. On some days, she needs to use a motorized wheelchair to move around longer distances, which helps reduce the strain caused by pain. Other times, when only moving around the house or a short distance, she uses a walking cane to help maintain balance and avoid falling. This not only affects her ability to move but also profoundly impacts her quality of life, requiring her to rely on those around her for completing everyday tasks. F lives with her girlfriend, who is not just her companion but also her caregiver when needed. F's girlfriend understands her health condition and is always there to assist her in situations where F can't manage on her own, such as when she needs to move from one place to another or when F feels too exhausted. The care and love from her girlfriend have helped F cope with the daily challenges she faces. They are a couple, but also a team that supports each other in life. One of the reasons F feels unsuitable to look after children is her medical condition. F suffers from chronic illnesses that severely impact her health, including fainting spells and brain fog, which make it difficult for her to focus for long periods or handle complex situations. These fainting spells and mental fog cause F to tire easily and lose control in situations that require intense focus, such as taking care of a child. F admits that she's simply not the right person to take care of kids, especially since her health doesn't allow her to ensure a child's safety. For all these reasons, F is simply not in a position to take on the responsibility of childcare. Not only does she lack the experience and ability to interact with children, but she also faces serious health limitations. These reasons were clearly explained in her conversation with Karen, but unfortunately, this didn't make Karen understand or respect F's decision. Instead, Karen dismissed F's health condition and failed to realize that she was asking for something beyond F's capabilities. Karen had seen F use both the wheelchair and cane, and had also seen F's girlfriend, who was at work, helping her get in and out of the car. So, F firmly replied with a definite no, explaining that her health condition made it unsafe for SK to stay with her and that she was not well enough to entertain guests, let alone watch an unsupervised child, at the moment. Immediately, the change in Karen's attitude became apparent and shocking. From a mother pleading for help with a humble, even somewhat weak tone, Karen suddenly shifted to a completely different demeanor, firm, confrontational, and full of anger. She put her hand on her hip, adopting a challenging posture, as if F's refusal was an infringement on her rights. This was not just a change in tone, but a shock to her behavior, leaving F feeling confused and stunned. Karen was no longer someone seeking help, but someone ready to condemn and blame others when her goals were not achieved. Then, Karen began accusing F of faking her disability. This was a serious accusation, demonstrating not only ignorance but also a profound lack of respect for F. Karen argued that, because F could walk a little, she clearly didn't need her wheelchair, a completely illogical and unfounded argument. Karen seemed unaware that disabilities aren't always visible, and a person with a disability can have good days when they are able to move without assistance. But that doesn't mean they don't need help at other times or that the pain and difficulties they experience are not real. Karen's judgment not only reflected her lack of understanding about F's health condition, but also her denial of what F endures every day. To add to the threat, Karen didn't hesitate to threaten F with reporting her to Centrelink, the social welfare agency, if F didn't agree to watch SK. This statement was truly a slap in the face to F's self-esteem, as it was not only a legal threat but also a financial one. Being reported to Centrelink could lead to many consequences, from an investigation to losing benefits, even though F does not receive any assistance from this agency. Karen's threat showed her deep misunderstanding of F's situation and even revealed a part of her selfishness, as she only wanted to take advantage of F without regard for F's actual circumstances. The truth is, F does not receive any benefits from Centrelink, which is completely opposite to what Karen believed. F's girlfriend has a high-paying job, and F also works remotely, with flexible hours between part-time and full-time work. This shows that F is incredibly resilient and works hard to support herself, despite the challenges of illness. She doesn't live off welfare, and Karen's threat to report her to Centrelink only highlighted her misconceptions and prejudices. F is living proof that people with disabilities can still work, contribute to society, and not all people with disabilities have to depend on social assistance. This also raises another important issue, the discrimination and prejudice faced by people with disabilities. While F can work and take care of herself independently, being employed is still a huge challenge for people with disabilities. Employers, whether unintentionally or not, can still exhibit unfair discrimination against people with disabilities, making it harder for them to find job opportunities. This reflects a deeper societal issue, where people with disabilities frequently face ignorance and prejudice from those around them. Ultimately, this story not only reflects Karen's disrespect and disdain for F, but also highlights the challenges people with disabilities face in society. This incident forced F to deal with discomfort, not only from Karen's behavior but also from the misguided judgments and societal stigma she had to endure. So, after hearing Karen's threats and unreasonable demands, F decided to respond firmly and clearly. She said resolutely, "I don't receive benefits from Centerlink and I don't like being threatened. Find someone else to watch the child, because I am not that person." This was not just a simple rejection but a strong protest against the invasion of her personal space and the pressure Karen was putting on her. F stood up to defend herself and assert her autonomy in a situation she had no obligation to participate in. Her words not only reflected her determination to refuse to watch SK but also served as a declaration that she did not want to be exploited or coerced into a situation beyond her control. As soon as she closed the door, F could feel Karen's frustration and anger. She didn't expect a gentle reaction from Karen, but being threatened and pressured only made F feel more insulted and sympathetic toward SK. However, what was remarkable was that despite the refusal, Karen didn't immediately give up. She kept knocking, as though she thought that if she persisted, F would change her mind. This was an expression of Karen's disregard for F's personal rights and autonomy. Not only did she disrespect F's health and circumstances, but Karen also tried to pressure and manipulate F into doing what she wanted, completely oblivious to the fact that F had been very clear in her refusal. However, after some time, around 20 minutes later, F heard a very soft and hesitant knock on the door. The sound was very different from the previous loud banging. It wasn't a knock demanding attention, but rather the sound of a frightened and anxious child. F admitted that if she hadn't been close to the door, she might not have heard such a faint knock. A feeling of exhaustion and frustration overwhelmed F as she guessed what was happening. She sighed, not only because the issue was continuing but also because of the harm SK must have been enduring. When F opened the door, she saw SK standing there, clearly having just cried. SK's eyes looked red and tired, and her little hands were tightly holding onto the straps of her small backpack as if searching for safety. It was an image full of vulnerability and hurt. SK, though only a 5-year-old child, had faced a situation she couldn't fully comprehend and was clearly abandoned by her own mother. SK whispered very quietly, "Mom said I could stay here today." This was not only a plea for protection and safety but also a heartbreaking event when a child could only cling to the hope that a stranger would be their only salvation. F, though she didn't have the love and patience for children, couldn't help but feel the pain in SK's eyes. She acknowledged that SK was actually a good child, even in such dire circumstances. SK didn't act out or cause trouble, she simply cried, the only expression of a child abandoned in a situation beyond her control. This was a painful event for F, as she realized that the child was not at fault in this story, but was bearing all the harm caused by the mother's irresponsibility. And this is when F realized what Karen had done. She had driven off, leaving SK at F's doorstep, as if she thought that with no other options, F would have to accept caring for SK for her. Karen seemed to think that F had no way of contacting her, and thus would have no choice but to agree. This was a selfish calculation, as Karen not only hurt F but also put SK in a completely unnecessary situation. Karen didn't consider F's feelings or her health condition, she was solely focused on her own benefit, trying to escape responsibility without caring about anyone else. Completely wrong. F had endured a childhood full of pain and trauma, with abusive parents, leaving her with deep scars. These experiences had shaped part of F's identity, someone highly sensitive to situations involving abandonment or violence, especially towards hurt children. When F witnessed SK being abandoned, she not only felt anger but also a strong sense of empathy, because she knew all too well what it felt like to be abandoned and left to endure painful circumstances. This made F unable to sit idly by, and she immediately decided to help SK in the only way she could. F quickly stabilized the situation for SK by letting her watch TV, drink water, and have snacks, simple actions, but ones that showed the care and attention F wanted to provide SK in this emergency. After ensuring SK was fine, F decided to call the police. Her conversation with the authorities was a clear depiction of the seriousness of the situation. "Hello, my neighbor just left her 5-year-old daughter at my apartment doorstep, and the child came to my door asking to come in." F not only reported the incident but also expressed her disapproval of Karen's actions, while SK, despite being a child, had to endure her mother's irresponsibility. When the police arrived, they listened to F recount the entire story, and their reaction was a mix of shock and, somewhat surprisingly, not much surprise. This indicated that, while the situation was serious and shocking, it was not an uncommon occurrence for the officers. One of them remarked, "You'll be surprised how not rare this is." This statement not only reflected the sadness about the state of society but also highlighted the normalization of some parents' irresponsible actions, deepening F's sense of frustration. After SK was taken away by the police, the officers were very gentle and thoughtful with the child. They explained to SK that she wasn't in any trouble, that she did the right thing by coming to F, and that they would take care of her and help her find her mother. This was an important part of resolving the situation, as children need to be comforted and protected emotionally, and the officers' actions showed they understood SK's confusion. In particular, F found some comfort knowing the police had been in contact with SK's father, although the situation was still tense. SK's father was in the middle of a divorce with Karen, and his reaction to the incident was one of anger, yet, unfortunately, not surprise. This showed a painful reality. It seemed that Karen's behavior had become part of an unchangeable lifestyle in the eyes of her ex-husband. The following morning, after things had settled down, F heard the familiar sound of a knock at the door. However, this time, it was SK's father, bringing her along. He had come to apologize to F for what his ex-wife had done and to thank her for taking care of SK and calling the police. In this meeting, F noticed a distinct difference in the attitude of this man compared to Karen. He appeared to be a good father, clearly putting his daughter first in all decisions and actions. This made F feel relieved and hopeful that SK would have a better environment after all that had happened. SK's father also shared an important piece of information. According to his lawyer, F's calling the police and handling the situation as she did would be a great advantage in the battle for custody of SK. He believed Karen's actions would prevent the court from awarding her custody. F's actions, although not done for anyone's benefit except SK, inadvertently became an important factor in helping him win the legal battle. The lawyer's satisfaction upon receiving this call reflected a harsh but necessary truth. In a society where children's rights are often overlooked, sometimes only such terrible events can motivate the legal system to act. In the end, F not only became a temporary protector for SK but also unintentionally created a major change in the child's life. Hopefully, with the help of her father and the legal system, SK would have a better life, far from irresponsible mothers like Karen. After hearing the father explain why Karen abandoned her daughter, F was surprised and, in part, felt that the truth was incredibly bizarre and disappointing. F couldn't stop wondering how important a potential appointment at a nail salon could be for a mother to abandon her little girl. This was not something that could be rationalized, and that was why F found it all the more heartbreaking and incomprehensible. Sometimes, parents can act in ways you never thought possible, and Karen's reason, an appointment at a nail salon, was nothing but an example of extreme selfishness. Karen had previously taken SK along many times to her nail appointments, even asking the staff at the salon to look after her daughter during her me time. This not only showed extreme irresponsibility but also reflected Karen's incredibly selfish attitude, treating her child as an obstacle and unworthy of the attention she deserved. This further highlighted Karen's lack of understanding of maternal responsibility and family affection. Surely, with the mindset of a responsible mother, no appointment or me time could ever be more important than the safety and care of one's children. The situation became ironic when Karen called to make an appointment at the last minute on the morning of the day before, right after the nail salon had asked her not to bring SK along anymore. This was an extremely reasonable response from the salon staff, as none of them were hired to take care of children while customers enjoyed their me time. This decision by the nail salon staff was truly a reminder that Karen's irresponsibility not only caused trouble for herself but also for those around her. What made the story even more bitter was that when Karen arrived late, the nail salon refused to serve her at all. This was a tragic end to Karen's arrogance and disrespect for the salon's rules and her daughter's needs. This is a textbook example of a Karen moment, where everything must revolve around her, and any objections are simply unacceptable. Not only did she abandon her daughter, but Karen also reacted to the salon's refusal as if it were an unbearable tragedy. When the father shared with F that Karen often used the phrase me time as an excuse to neglect her daughter, F could feel the pain and disappointment the father had for his ex-wife. Karen's me time was not a time to relax or take care of herself, but a reason for her to avoid facing the responsibility of being a mother. Phrases like, "Don't talk to me during my me time," only heighten Karen's selfishness and laziness as a mother. F, with her experience of family relationships and parental affection, couldn't help but feel anger at Karen's lack of concern for her child. After hearing the father share these details, F could sense the father's desperation as he tried to seek justice for his daughter in the custody battle. Although F's health wasn't good, and she knew she couldn't formally participate in the custody dispute, she still decided to support the father. By agreeing to provide a written statement, even though it might not be necessary, F was demonstrating impartiality and support for a father who wanted to protect his child's rights. This also reflects a sad truth about the legal system and society. Sometimes, only such disappointing actions create an opportunity for responsible individuals, like the father, to win custody. This not only sheds light on Karen's irresponsibility but also gives the father a chance to become the only protector for SK in the future. The story ends with a bitter irony when F speculated that facing the police might have scared Karen and made her feel a little bit of the real consequences of her actions. F felt happy and relieved when Karen didn't appear at her door, and this could be seen as a rare moment in the story when fear of consequences could influence the behavior of irresponsible people. F and Karen's story is a profound lesson about responsibility, selfishness, and caring for those around us. First, it highlights the importance of parenting and responsibility towards children. Karen, despite being a mother, lacked the respect and proper care for her daughter, driven by selfishness and her own me-time needs. This led to the unacceptable act of abandoning SK. Meanwhile, the father, despite going through a tense divorce, still placed his daughter first and sought to protect her rights. F, although not the ideal person to care for children, didn't hesitate to help and support the father in protecting custody, showing humanity and kindness. The story also demonstrates that sometimes we must stand up and protect the vulnerable, no matter how difficult the situation may be. The advice for F is to continue maintaining her resilience and compassion, especially when facing unfair circumstances. Likewise, for the father, continuing to fight for his daughter's rights is incredibly important, and it's hoped that he will be able to win custody in the future. This story also reminds us that responsibility cannot be avoided, and every action, no matter how small, can make a big difference for those around us.